Welcome to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Life presents experiences that add a layer to who we are and how we see the world, affecting how we communicate. Lydia is here to help you take apart the layers and create new ways to connect and build relationships. So now, please welcome the host of Layers of Communication, Lydia Taggart.
Hello, welcome to Layers of Communication. I'm your host, Lydia Taggart. I'm so excited for you to be here today. We're going to get through another layer of those relationship connecting kind of things that might hold us back, might help us get forward. We're going to get through it, figure out how to connect at the core. Today, we are talking with Melanie Brown, but first I want to tell you a little bit about what has been on my mind this last week. I have had something come up that I was like, that's so interesting, and yes, that's so true. I'm going to share that with everybody. And that is, our emotions can be habits. Have you ever thought about that? You get into something that triggers you. How do you react? Do you automatically get angry? Do you automatically get sad when something happens? There's all these different ways of things that trigger our habits or our emotions, and what can be done to change those habits, because they're a habit, right? And when somebody does something, then I automatically do something. That's what a habit is. Are we automatically getting angry when somebody says something that we don't like? Are we automatically getting all withdrawn and sad if somebody says something that triggers us or something happens? If we're late to get out of bed in the morning, does that set us off to have a bad day the rest of the day? Or is it just a moment, I'm going to have to do something about that, right? Hopefully you don't speed to make up for that time. Anyway, these emotions can be our habits, and habits are easy to change. It just takes a little bit of effort. Recognize that it's a habit, and then we can change it, right? Okay, so I want to welcome in Melanie Brown. And she's been with us before. I'm really excited to have her back again, because last time we talked, we had so much more to talk about. And I'm really excited to have more conversation with her today. We're going to be talking about suicide prevention in teenagers. And Melanie has just been awarded, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. She has been crowned, actually, not awarded. She earned this. She's been crowned Ms. Female Entrepreneur Utah 2018. So awesome. And that's because she's been promoting and helping this platform, as she calls it, the platform of preventing teenage suicide. It's very dear to her heart and dear to my heart. I'm really excited to have her here with us today. So tell us more about your award and this crowning.
It is an incredible honor, very, very exciting. And I just really was looking forward to being able to compete with that, because it allows me to get my message out to more people, right? That teen suicide is preventable. It really is. So I'm super excited, and I'm competing in October in Los Angeles for national. So I'm looking for sponsors who would be willing to hop on and support that platform of teen suicide prevention in order to help me compete on a national level, because, really teen suicide is an epidemic nationally. It's really bad in Utah, really bad. And it just breaks my heart, because I know that we used to kind of not talk about it, maybe if we don't talk about it, nobody will know, and they won't think about it, and they'll be fine, and now we're talking about it, and that's awesome. Lots and lots of people are talking about it all over the state, and great things are happening. We're having bills that are being passed in regards to it. It's exciting, really, to see so many people understanding this important problem that we're having with our teenagers. It's just so heartbreaking. And so I'm super excited to be kind of part of all of that, and I want us to get past just the conversation.
Yes.
Right. To understanding that there's something we can do. And I love that you talked about habits, really. we get into habits as parents with our teenagers that are so detrimental. Our response, our emotional response to them gets to be a habit, and their response back gets to be a habit, if you think about it. So I love that idea of habits, because we can think about creating different habits in our relationship, which is so powerful and so important to create a different kind of relationship.
Yes. And so many times we think, oh, this is just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And it's not. It's a habit. It's an expectation. It's just changeable. Everything is you can change anything. I believe in miracles, but it doesn't really need a miracle. Sometimes it will feel like a miracle, but these little steps as you're changing habits, if you want to, I'm working on my physical appearance and health and all that good stuff right now. All the little things add up. Thank you.
They do. And it's so hard because we get really impatient too, right?
Yeah.
We want things to change with our teenagers right now. And so it's like we poke the bear. Right? We poke and we poke and we prod and we push and we remind and we bug and we wonder why they growl.
And we say, we're just encouraging, we're just reminding them, but really we're like, do it now, roar. And we're kind of growling at them most of the time. Even if we're not growling, we have that growling attitude in our mind.
Yes. And then when they growl back, they're in trouble, right? Yeah. You're in trouble now because you growled back at me. It didn't matter that I started it.
I was watching Maddie 911 several years ago, and because my kids were little, and I was like, I need to figure out what to do. Every episode, it was nothing at all to do with the kids being out of control. Every single episode came back to the parents made a different change in the way they handled things. Their habits changed. Every single episode. And I think we forget how influential we are as parents.
Yes. And
we think that they're grown up and they're teenagers and we don't have any kind of influence on them anymore because their friends are so influential. And but friends and people at school are influential, but parents are still there. We need to not just step out and say, oh, they're grown up and we're not needed anymore. We think we need to be there all the time when they're toddlers and don't go in the street and stuff like that. And then we think sometimes we forget they still have things that we need to help them with and to support them in. And maybe they know not to run out in the street, but we can still be there for them. We don't have to just step back and leave them out. And I think that's part of the transition issue, where teenagers, tell me if this is right or not, Melanie, but I think what I have seen is that teenagers get lost because they're trying to find themselves. They're transitioning from the dependent to independent, and there's not a supportive system in place for them to make that transition. The parents either want to control them and still treat them like little kids, and then the parents have issues when they're like, oh, my baby's gone. Oh. Or we go the other extreme and say, fine, you're grown up, do your thing.
And I think we do that in frustrated response, right? Mm-hmm. So we do the hovering helicopter parent thing, maybe, because now they're teenagers and we're like, oh my gosh, if they get in trouble, they could get in big trouble now. They're going to do really scary things. And I have to make sure that I figure out how to not let them do scary things because that's what they're capable of now, right?
Right.
Not walking into the street or throwing the toothbrush down the toilet, right?
Right.
But the trouble with that is, I've talked to literally hundreds of teenagers, and they want so much for their parents to trust them.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy to me. We know what we were capable of as teenagers, or we may even know what we did as teenagers that we tell our parents, maybe, right? So why would we think that our teenagers are going to get through teenagerhood unscathed?
Right.
With doing stupid stuff. But the trouble is, if we protect them. We keep them in check. We hold on to them really tight when they're teenagers, and then they burst out when they get out on their own. The impact of them doing something stupid when they're over 18 and they're an adult is much worse, right?
Oh, yes.
So we want them to trip a little if they're going to, when they're young enough that we're there to help them pick up the pieces, right?
Yes.
And so
Exactly.
we helicopter and we hold on and we push, and we tell them what to do. And they get so frustrated because they feel like they're treated like they're two.
Right.
They want us to believe in them so much. And you're right. They really do need us. But they need us to be in a different role. They need us to kind of be the cheerleader, like, you can do it. I trust you. I love you. You're awesome. We can figure out this problem together. You're not the problem. This is the problem, and we're the team. It's so, so important to think of it that way.
Yes. That's reminding me of a conversation I had with my oldest son this a week ago. He had gone camping, and I was trying to let him grow up. I was like, I'm not going to bug him. I'm not going to check his packing for him. I'm going to let him be the growing up. This is your camping. You know what to do. You know what to bring. And this is my boy with Asperger's, so that's really huge and hard for me. And so we got to camp, and he didn't listen to me, because on the way out I said, as you're putting it in the car, you might want to double check and make sure everything actually gets in the car. And we got there, and this was like, it seemed like 3 hours drive away. It's way out. I was like, my car cannot handle this little dirt road for 500 miles. And we're out there, and we didn't even get into the camp because it was an Order of the Arrow Boy Scout camp. And so there's a guy sitting out there, one of the leaders, and he says, okay, we're going to stop right here, and they're going to hike into camp, and they're going to carry all their gear, and they're going to wilderness it and whatever. And so I'm checking him in and saying, we're here. And my son starts freaking out, kind of. He's like, where is it? I forgot to bring my sleeping bag. Blah! I'm like, oh boy,
no.
Sleeping bag is kind of important for a whole week. And we're way, way, way out there. And he was really upset. But I had this conversation with him. It was just priceless, that you made a mistake. It's okay. We can go buy a new sleeping bag. And he was like, but we don't have money for that. That's a waste of money, and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, right now it's my money. And I think it's a pretty good investment to have an extra sleeping bag. I can go get it and bring it back. If you've learned your lesson, that you're going to make sure you really do have all your stuff when you're going somewhere, be fully prepared. And he calmed down. He was like, okay. But even then, when I brought the sleeping bag back, I was hoping that it really got to him, because I dropped it off with somebody else. He was off in the wilderness somewhere. And of course he did. Everything turned out great. But, these mistakes, when they're small, and, well, it's a small mistake. And when they're younger, we can be there to help them realize, it's just a mistake. We learn from it, and we have a team, and then we can move on. If he was out as an adult doing his own camping, and he ended up there without a sleeping bag, and I wasn't able to go get him another one or whatever, then it would be a completely different story. Mm-hmm. And he probably would have had to not go out in the mountains and all that. So I drove back an hour and a half into Evanston to find a Walmart and get a sleeping bag. And then he was like, is it going to be big enough for me? Because he's 6'5". And most sleeping bags aren't for that big of people. But, but I love the story you're saying about the smaller experiences before it's a big experience with bigger consequences when they're older. And I'm sorry, my thing is dinging so loud. Yours too.
Even if it's seemingly to a parent a big experience.
Mm-hmm.
maybe failing a class.
Yeah, that would be a bigger.
We don't want our children to go through that. I mean, failing a test is problematic. We're bothered by that. But really, in the big picture of their life, there are going to be times in their life where they fail.
Mm-hmm.
There are. They're going to
and it strengthens us.
Yes. There are going to be times when someone else wins and they lose. But can they be excited for someone else to win, right? Can they weather working towards something and not achieving, so that they can gain resilience? One of the things that we know as therapists is that children, teenagers, and adults do better in life when they have higher levels of resilience.
Yes.
So allowing them to stumble, fall off the bike and get back on, forget their toothbrush and have to go without for a night, or, failing a class that they have to make up even. We need to allow them to weather those things, or they come into their adult life expecting everything to go right, and they don't know how to handle it when it goes wrong.
Right.
And a lot of youth that struggle with self-harm, suicide kinds of issues need to learn higher levels of connection to other human beings and higher levels of resilience. They need to know what to do when things go wrong. They need to know how to manage the emotions it brings up, coming back to the habit of emotion, right? They need to learn how to calm themselves and take another look at the situation and come up with a solution. Because I don't know about you, but when something really upsets me and I'm really bothered about it, I have a really hard time looking at it logically and coming up with another solution.
Right. Those emotions kind of take over, and they're like, whoa, they can't think straight because everything is like full of emotion. So what is like one or two things that a parent can do other than just stepping back and saying, I'm going to let you deal with it? Because we don't want to step back all the way. What can we do to help our kids be resilient and build those connections with live humans and all these things? What's one or two things that we can work on easily?
I think, again, I just want to really encourage parents to, in the way that you talk about the problems with your teenager, to voice it in the idea that this is the problem and we're the team that's going to solve the problem. Oftentimes when there's problems in school, parents look at it like, well, you just need to fix it. You need to work harder. You need to get better grades. You need to pay attention. You need to ask for help. You, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when parents give that message, you need to fix it, you need to fix it, you need to fix it, the teenager is feeling overwhelmed emotionally by their struggle, by how that affects how they feel about who they are. Like, I'm failing. And they need to learn to say, I didn't do well on this. I need to do better. Not I'm a failure, but I'm needing to correct this failure, right? So separating out in the way that you talk about it between them being the problem and there being a problem that they have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So let's put the problem out there and let's look at the problem, parents and the teenager, and maybe you need to add some team members, right? Like the teacher or a counselor, a therapist, that's me, to help them understand how to manage the overwhelming emotion and how to look at the situation and come up with alternative solutions. Just like you said, we get into habits. Maybe we're in a habit of driving the same way to work every day, and work gets to be stressful and overwhelming, and our emotions take over, and we let that be the habit. And you can break those habits by driving a different way to work.
Yep.
Going out a different door.
That's one
way. And that's also a way that you can teach your teenagers to manage their emotions.
And that's one point I want to make too, that we think sometimes that habits take a long time to form, but it only takes a second to change the habit. The moment that you walk out a different door, you've changed it. Even that one little thing. Yeah. And you practice that same change to break that habit and go the different path. But it doesn't have to take 30 days or however long it is to make a new habit. You can break your old habits in a second, just a second.
And then it's a matter of following up, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing I think that's really important to go along with that is how many of us make a goal and then when we don't complete it, like as adults, raise your hand, right? Like how many of you make a New Year's resolution, right? And you're gonna lose 30 pounds and you're gonna run a half marathon, and you're like, first of all, we build these goals that are like crazy instead of reasonable. But then we don't follow through after a week, and then a week later we're like, oh, see, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
No,
it takes time. Follow up.
You have fallen back into the old habit, or you have stopped working out, or you have stopped journaling, or you have stopped spending time on yourself, or whatever thing that you wanted to do better at, just start again.
That's right.
Start again.
We have to start every day.
Yeah, help your teenagers get in the habit of looking at a problem as, okay, I'm not doing well again in being consistent about this. I'm not doing well again about taking care of this. Start again. Start over. Help them do that. You help them do that, right? So that they can understand you can always start again.
Yes. And one of the things.
Do it for 7 days, and then you fall off for 4 or 5 days. And then you start again and you do it for 3 more days. You got 10 out of 14.
And that's really good.
If you don't start again, you only got 7.
That's right.
Start again.
I've been thinking about the grading issue and how important that is for a teenager's self-esteem and being graded and thinking that they're failing or not doing well. Something that's coming to my mind is to remember that those grades are just to help us know where we need to focus our studies. If we're doing awesome in English, that's easy. Just keep it up. But if you're having a hard time in math, well, put some more time and effort into math. Those grades, when we give ourselves some sort of judgment like that, either grades or, like you're saying, exercising or different things, or we translate it to I'm failing, but really it's just, hey, you have missed all of the things in this chapter. This chapter here on fractions or whatever it is, you need to go back and study that. You're doing awesome on addition, you're doing awesome on subtraction. Put a little more time into this part, and I think that's what it would really benefit all of us if we looked at our grades and our judgments as, hey, there's somewhere to put a little more effort.
I love that. Right?
Yeah.
We really need to help our teenagers recognize where they're succeeding.
Yes.
You know, we really get in a habit of talking to them a lot about what they need to do and we expect a lot of them. And so we're like, you need to pay attention and you need to follow through and you need to get this done and you need to take care of that. And we forget how much is on their shoulders. And I think we all could use a little more celebration.
Oh, absolutely. Celebrate. Now, how would you celebrate? Let's just make up a scenario. If you had a teenager who's really struggling, they're really down on themselves, they're failing 3 or 4, maybe all of their classes, and they're really turning inward, how would you celebrate someone that you're having a hard time maybe finding something to point out, yeah, you're doing great, because they are so far down that path that they're not doing great? What would you do to celebrate them?
You know, when you've got a teenager that's that far gone, They really need you to love them as they are. They really need to believe that there's something more important to you than their grades.
Mm-hmm.
That they have personal worth to you that's more important than that. So I would intentionally look for things that they're doing right. Yes, Michelle, we really need to celebrate them as a person. So helping them find the things they're doing right, okay, and celebrate the little progress that they make. I mean, if they bring a grade up from an F to a D, we still think it should be an A. Can we celebrate the progress?
Right,
Oh
progress.
goodness, look at what you've done. You managed to change this. That means that you can change it some more. Take them out for an ice cream. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to break the bank if you be like, hey, let's celebrate some success. Notice the things they're doing right. Notice when they get the dishes done, or they clean up in their room, or they are kind to their sibling. Could we notice their successes so that they don't always feel like they're failing? Because I'm telling you from personal experience, the loss of a child changes your life forever. And I would do anything to have David back. Anything, right? And I didn't understand what I understand now. And oh my gosh, there are things that bugged me that he did, that I prodded the bear about, that now I wouldn't care. It wouldn't matter an inch to me if I could just hug him one more time. So pick your battles, right? Like, don't battle them every single day. They get hopeless.
Right.
They get to a point where they feel like no matter what they do, it won't make it any better, and you won't. They're just a burden. They're just a problem.
Yeah.
Michelle is saying maybe they're really good at art, and sometimes we forget that they have great abilities in other areas. That's true,
That's
right?
right.
Like, get
That's
stuck
right.
in the idea that school is all that matters.
Mm-hmm. And it's not.
It isn't. It isn't. They are what matters. They matter.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find a way to love them and celebrate their successes.
I like to celebrate that they're trying, that they're giving an effort, that we don't celebrate that they've improved their grade. I like to celebrate, hey, you took that test. Good job. You made it. And you actually went to school. You sat there and you finished taking the test. That was the hard part. You did it. Yeah. And then if they have a good grade, oh, see, you did good. Or you've improved, or there's something more to work on still. But that effort, I think it's important to recognize that they're trying.
And sometimes, when all we're noticing is where they're failing at, they stop altogether.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. When teenagers get to the point where they're failing across the board, my experience is that they were making an effort somewhere and they really worked at it and it didn't get noticed, so it didn't matter.
Right.
And they will quit. They will quit because it didn't matter. And they need to know that they matter so much to you, that you're really trying to help them because they matter.
That's right.
It's just sad when they get to the point where they just feel like every effort they make isn't enough. And that's when they want to quit. Right.
So that's what I want to, we're at the end of our time. That's what I want to leave with our audience today. That you matter, that let's count the effort. Let's celebrate all the little things. And if you can't find something that is, maybe they're not awesome in math, not very many people are, really. That's a small percentage of the population who is really good at math. There's something else that each person has, an individual specialness about them. Find that, bring that out, share that, and let them know that you recognize them for who they are and how they contribute. Even if they're just there, appreciate them being there and spend that time to be there with them. And just let them know that they matter. Melanie, thank you so much for being here with us. Where can people find you for more information and to continue this conversation with you?
I would love to connect with anybody who needs some kind of support in working with their teenagers that are really struggling. My website is Healing Hearts and Homes, and we have some great stuff coming up. We're doing a silent auction to gain funds to open a new intensive outpatient program for youth who struggle with suicide. And we're launching a retreat for mothers who've lost a child to suicide. And all that information is on the website. Or you can, contact me through Facebook, Melanie Brown, Healing Hearts and Homes. And I would love the opportunity to help anyone out that needs some support, really, truly. Because this is my work, this is my heart, to save as many teenagers as I can. And I just want you to know that even when your teenager is struggling, they're incredible, they're brilliant, they're amazing, they're capable, and we just have to help them find their way back to knowing that that's the truth so that they can become the amazing, wonderful person that they're capable of being.
Yes, because it's all about remembering who they are, not becoming someone new, but remembering who they are. Thank you again, Melanie. I'm Lydia Taggart. This is Layers of Communication. Thank you for being here with us. Remember, you are worth it, and so are they. We'll see you next week at 10 o'clock a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and make it a good one. We love you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Layers of Communication with your host, Lydia Taggart. Tune in next week as we discover the layers in order to communicate and connect down to your core on Lydia Taggart's Layers of Communication.